Hello, brick sculptors, and welcome back to Brick Sculpt. This is Chris, and today we're going to talk about these guys again. Now, if you watch my videos, you know I've done videos on both these pieces and how much I love or hate them, and I want to talk about one thing they might have in common. Now, if you're new to this piece is 15706, this piece is 79846. And the one common thing about them is they both come at 45-degree angles. The other common thing about them is in the comments for both these videos, I kept hearing the same thing. Spiral staircase. Make a spiral staircase. That would be an awesome spiral staircase. So let's make some spiral staircases. So I'm going to start with these guys. Now, the angle on this makes this look like it would be a great spiral staircase piece. And I played around with this a lot and I realized, okay, the most logical thing would be to have it spiral around the central hole. And the easiest way to do that would be to just alternate studs like this, locking them together. And you can do that over and over again. Now, to add the stairs section, I figured, why not take a piece of tile and a little plate, and we can put a banister on there too to make a handrail. Now once I've made a bunch of these, you can start to stack them. Now this looks okay, but it's got a few problems. Number one, it's quite large. Not totally a problem, it could work in some applications. But watch what happens as I start going higher. And as I add more and more of these, something really bad's going to happen. Because this piece is double-sided, it starts to overlap itself. And I don't know about you, but that'd be a pretty small minifig to fit underneath that. So that's why I say this piece really doesn't make a very good spiral staircase. Now there might be other methods to do this. This one just seemed to make the most sense to me. And unfortunately, I would never use this in my city. I don't think this is a good method because of that overlap. There's just too much going on the other side, which is completely unnecessary because over here it just sits underneath the stairs. And so I'm going to say this piece makes a poor spiral staircase. Let's see if its buddy stacks up any better. Now in playing with this piece, I tried lots of different configurations of how to connect these, how to pivot them, and make them look the best that I could. Now, one person in the comments pointed out that they've already used these in spiral staircases in official LEGO sets. And specifically, set number 71717, which is the Ninjago Journey to the Skull Dungeons. And I'm going to show you the technique that they used here. And it looks like this. They just connected them at a very logical point, and they have these really big steps. But obviously they have some large gaps, and here's how they filled it in. They take a slope up top, another slope down here, one of these wing pieces here, another one there, and one on top. Now, this is kind of cool, but it's not a spiral staircase. If anything, it's a slightly curved rock walkway with a ton of gaps in it. Now, for the application they're using, it actually works pretty good. It's designed to look like a rock walkway, and it kind of does. I probably wouldn't put this in my city because it's just a little too imperfect. It's got a lot of gaps and things showing and studs showing in weird places. I should also mention that when they use this technique, it makes for a very irregular connection. This is the way they connect it in their set. They have a stack over here that connects, and then they just put it on tile like this. Because as you can see, this is not going to make a clean connection on the bottom. So it's still going to be a little funky. Now, with that logic, number one, I said I could probably do a lot better than that. So let's try and make my own. But number two, watching how this lines up, I feel like I'm going to have a hard time getting the math right on this, where it'll actually make a clean connection top and bottom. You're probably going to have to do something like this on any stair set you build out of this piece. So I'm playing around with these pieces and looking for good connections. I'm going to show you the ones that I found that I think look the best, and let's see how they stack up. So first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to cover the actual stair part in tile. And what I did was a 2x2 tile right here and a 1x2 tile right here. The next was to get the spacing right so I could put the next step kind of right in the right area. And the way I did that, a 2x2 jumper on this side and just a 1x2 plate on that side. Then we just line our two pieces up like this, connect it in the middle of the jumper and on the edge of the plate, and it lines up pretty nice. Then I can continue with another couple of tiles and make stairs. When you put a bunch together, it looks something like this. And let me connect this on here. So it's actually got a really cool look. The stairs line up really nicely. They're really flush on this side as well as on that side, which is incredibly hard to do with spiral staircases. And I think it looks really clean. I don't like how much stuff extra you have going on here that I think is really irrelevant. It's just there because I'm using this funky piece. I think I could make this just as good looking with much simpler pieces. And also on the flip side, once I do connect this to a base, this top is going to be a mess to line it up. But again, if I do the bottom floating, it's not a huge deal. Trying to work a wall in here won't look the greatest, but you might be able to extend this out and just make kind of a wall out of it. This underside's kind of ugly, but you could probably hide that just depending on where you're putting it. So I don't think it's too bad, but it's far from an ideal piece for that. Like I said, I think I could make a similar or better set with a much simpler piece. So long story short, you can make spiral staircases out of these, but I don't think they're great. I think this piece, 15706, wins this battle, but again, I don't think I would jump to either of these for this method. Now let's talk about some spiral staircases that I think are good methods. Number one, I want to talk about what Lego does. And to be honest, I hope I'm not alone in this. This is an embarrassment. This is a Lego spiral staircase. This came in a Harry Potter set. I'm sure they're in other sets too. And it's quite obvious it's built just to be a spiral staircase. And the reason I say it's an embarrassment is this is hardly Lego. I mean, it really is. This has one purpose. There's really nothing else you can do with this outside being a spiral staircase. The pieces are so specific. This might as well be Playmobil or some other toy system. This is not really a constructive building piece. There's no connection points on any of this. It's this kind of hollow, lame, boring inside. And literally, this can only be the spiral staircase. I'm sure you could think of a few other things, but you'd really be stretching to call this a useful piece. And I think this was kind of a cop-out answer, especially since there's so many awesome ways to make Lego spiral staircases. So I'm going to share a few with you. Now, in creating my own spiral staircases, I was a little bit inspired by this. I noticed that the only problem with this, or the only big problem, was the fact that it overlaps. So I said, what if you had this piece, but instead of having two sides, it was just one side with this round? That could make a really cool spiral staircase. Unfortunately, it's not a real piece, but it did bring to mind another piece. This is kind of an old school piece. This guy right here has a hole and a 2x2 on it, and that's fairly similar. So I said maybe I could make a spiral staircase with this. And experimenting around, I decided to put some tile on it. I put a 1x4 here so I can connect another 2x2 to make it a little bit longer. And then I put a 1x2 here, a 1x1 plate, and a 1x1 tile to make this pattern. And then I figured I could take these two, connect them together, line up the hole, and there's my stairs. When I put a bunch of them together, it looks like this. And you just stagger them real nicely there. I don't love the center, That's a pretty good looking staircase, much better than this, I think. And if I wanted to extend this out further, I could, to put a railing on it. Or I could possibly just put one right here if I made this a plate, not a tile, on the corner here. But I thought that was pretty cool. And I've never used this staircase in any of my builds or anything. Again, this was just purely inspired by this technique here. And this is why I love making videos like this, because you can learn something even when you have what I consider to be a failure. It inspired something new in a different piece that I would have never tried before. So that's kind of cool. With this technique, you can also space the stairs tighter. If you move the plate up to the end, you can have a really narrow stair. So you can have a lot of stairs real close together going up really fast. Or you can make them looser. And I did the same thing here, but just move the stud back this way more so I can have a bigger stair. And you may have a little gap here. You could take a plate, much like I did with this here, and cover that if you wanted, and put a banister on it. But just some alternate variations to this method that I think might be useful if you want to try this out. Now I want to talk about a few staircases that I actually do use. If you watch my videos and you've been a fan for a long time, a while back I put out a stairs, tips, tricks, and techniques video. And the technique I use for the spiral staircase is this. It uses very simple pieces, and almost anyone can make this with probably stuff you already have. This is a 1x6 plate, and these are 1x1 plates. I've got two of them stacked on top of each other, and this one's just single. You put them on opposite ends, just like that, and then you take a 2x4 tile. This tile is going to stick right in the middle and hang over. Now once you build a bunch of these, you can stack them just like this. And that 1x1 here will lock it in place and keep it from moving. Once you stack a whole bunch of them, it'll look like this. And then you can add banisters on the outside. I've done this technique several times. There's lots of different things you can put on top of the banisters, but this is kind of a cool method where you use these 1x2 slopes because they overlap really nicely and make a nice clean look. Now this one is still a little bit trickier to attach top and bottom, but you do have some play to this. So it is a little easier to line up when you get up to either a 90-degree angle or 180 degrees or 360. You can definitely work it out with that little bit of movement that you have in the pieces. Now this one I thought up brand new for this video, and I gotta be honest, I love this technique. This will be going in my city at some point. If you watch my videos regularly, I just talked about these guys as well as these guys, so I figured let's make a staircase out of them. So here's what I came up with. I put one on the outside. I put a 1x1 round plate on the other. I got to fill in the step here. You don't have to fill in the step, but it looks better if you do. If you're doing a metal staircase, it might even be better to leave it blank, like an outdoor fire escape or something. But I fill it in like that. And I use a round one on this side, so it allows this to articulate and get some motion. And then we just repeat. Like this, that, and there. And when we put a whole bunch of these together, it's going to look like this. And this, I think, is absolutely beautiful. On the outside, the central column is nice and symmetrical. That's one problem with this. You get the twist on there, so it's kind of a funky design. But this is just straight around, all the way around. It's really tight since the steps are only 3 wide and they're quite shallow, so you can climb pretty quickly in this. So like I said, this would be good for a fire escape, or if you don't have a lot of space in the interior building, this will work really well. I used the cheese slope method on my banister for this one. So I just topped all the banisters with cheese slopes and just followed that curve all the way up. And I think that looks pretty darn good. So as always, I love making these videos because I love hearing your guys' feedback. You guys provide so much good feedback and so many tips and tricks and techniques that I use in future videos. And I'll be honest, I'm learning as much as you guys are watching this, if not more, because of the amount of resources I'm getting from this and the amount of stuff you guys are telling me. So please, if you have any other cool techniques or suggestions or things you like about this or things you don't like about this, please let me know below in the comments. I love hearing about it. I try to respond to as many comments as I possibly can. Sometimes it gets tricky, so bear with me. I just love the interaction and the sense of community that these videos give. Well, that's all for this time. If you guys like these videos, please like and subscribe. I'm going to do more just like this in the future, and we will see you next time.